Hello, and welcome to the Vulnerability Junkies podcast. I'm Kevin.
And I'm Jamie. On this podcast, we talk about the scary, vulnerable parts of our personal and professional growth, our identities as second-generation Asian Canadians, and talking about our feelings. What does your relationship with yourself sound like? Which part of you is speaking, which part is listening, and what's being said? What do you wish it sounded like?
In today's episode, we explore how connecting with and really listening to your inner child can be really scary. But on the other side of that fear can be warmth, joy, and a lot of much-needed tears. Let's get into it. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen.
Welcome back, Kevin.
We're back. That somehow has unintentionally become how we open every episode. You know that?
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. That one's new.
No, the we're back.
Oh, yeah.
It's like, we're back.
Yeah.
Somehow that became a thing.
Sure.
And did the welcome just to change it up a little bit.
Okay, great. Variety is the spice of life, I guess. So
90% sure none of this makes it into the edit, but
yeah, I'm pretty sure this is not our bias.
Exactly.
Oh man.
Hello. How are you doing today?
I'm feeling pretty good right now. I'm at like a 7 emotionally and then physically like a 6. So pretty good energy going in.
It's
Where are you
pretty
at,
good.
buddy?
Think physically like a 5. Yeah, emotionally like a 3.
Yeah.
It's one of those days, but that's okay. We
What
don't
do I-
always show up at 100%. So
Yeah. What kind of 3 are you at right now?
it's a good question. Just exhausted.
Hmm.
I just feel exhausted. Yeah.
Well, in the past, when we've gotten through these conversations, we usually end up higher energy than we begin. So let's see if we can replicate that result today.
It's true. It's let's walk the fine line between not having an expectation, but still being hopeful about it.
Yeah.
If it happens, it happens. That'd be great. What's your predominant emotion right now?
I think just calm. A very neutral calm.
Nice,
that-
dude.
I don't feel energy shooting out of me, but I also don't feel anything like dragging me down at the moment. Just feel light, but not fired up.
Calm sounds like the dream. So that's pretty dope. I'm smiling pretty big right now.
Yeah, I mean, I think there is a reason that many different life philosophies tend to idealize a state of calm. So in Stoicism, they call it eudaimonia. And then in Buddhism, people talk about this idea of equanimity. And I think they're similarly good because it allows you to move through life without resistance. And I think that's what I'm feeling right now is just non-resistance to my current situation.
Nice.
Yeah. So I believe that you had a topic in mind for today based on some recent experiences. So what are we talking about today, Kevin?
Yeah, I think, we were having a conversation about this, I think, shortly after we recorded last time, which started off with me sharing about how I feel that I am default anxious in life, and that whenever it's most pronounced whenever I'm just typically alone, doing nothing, is when it starts to just become incredibly obvious to me that at my resting state of mind, when I try to get to a place of calm and stillness, what eventually pervades that for me is this feeling of anxiety and this feeling of restlessness. And it feels like in my heart, my heart is vibrating. Like it's just unable to be in a still state and be unperturbed. It's constantly kind of twitching a little bit. And then physically, it's it just manifests as tightness and everything kind of being knotted up. And then in my mind, it's definitely restlessness because whenever I'm in that state, I will immediately reach for distraction, either listening to something like music or a podcast or watching something like a YouTube video or a show on Netflix, or reaching out to hang out with people or talk to them on Instagram or other mindless quote unquote time wasters like scrolling through social media. And it all stems from I don't know where it comes from, but this sensation and feeling I have that I don't want to be doing nothing right now.
Mm.
Because if I do nothing and I just try to be still with myself with no distractions, it's like a very scary thing. And I think when I described this last, you had mentioned that also resonated with you in how you've observed yourself to be in these moments of stillness and like alone time with yourself. So yeah, I'm curious to, well, first like hear from you about how you experience it, because I kind of want to learn a bit and connect a bit on that, because as I've been describing this to other people, I realize that not everyone else feels that way when they're alone and just hanging out with themselves. So as one of the few people, luckily, I guess, that also relates to this, like I'm curious to learn from how you experience it first.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I definitely do experience parts of this. It sounds like, especially now that you've had this intention this year to give yourself the space you need to have the kind of stillness for just to have a space to breathe and to allow your mind to gain clarity over time, that one of the things you've been running into in the process is that in the pursuit of that kind of calm, still space, your brain gets into a very unhappy state and get into this anxious state. So the thing that was really surprising to me in the way that you shared about your experiences here that doesn't quite match up with mine is you mentioned this element of being scared. Like there's like some fear. And all the other facets you mentioned, I have very direct analogs that feel immediately represented in my own experiences. Like the tightness definitely comes up. The restlessness of my mind definitely comes up as well. And I guess I have felt states of fear in the past, but I think it's actually been quite a while since I've felt that kind of fear. You mentioned when you're in these states of anxiety, like this fear is kicking up, you just really notice yourself reaching for distraction. Do you know, this is kind of a weird question, but do you know why? Why do you reach for distraction in that situation?
It's kind of like ostriching, you're just kind of like, I want to put my head in the sand, like, and be in denial about this, right? Like, I don't want to look at the actual thing, which is being still and this feeling of anxiety. It's like, I don't want to deal with this anxiety right now.
Yeah.
I'm going to go deal with something else, like gonna occupy my mind with something else. People, music, the movie. That makes a lot of sense to me. It's like such a classic distraction seeking avoidance kind of pattern. Is that not intuitive to you?
It's intuitive to me. The thing that I think that part of how I've repeatedly end up in these more prolonged anxious states is frequently now when I hit this kind of edge of stress that causes me to go seeking distraction, I'm self-aware of what's happening and it bothers me. So as I'm reaching for distraction, I can see myself reaching not for joy or intrigue or connection. I'm reaching directly for distraction. And I think I have a pretty clear sense of self-judgment for not just confronting the thing directly.
I love that.
But I also don't know how to confront the thing directly most of the time.
Interesting.
So for you, when you hit these states, first of all, are you aware of what you're doing in the moment of it, or is it only in retrospect?
I think more recently, call it within the last month, I've become aware of it. Historically, it just happened. Like I would start to feel the feelings of anxiety like a little bit. Like they would start to build, and then immediately it's not logical, right? It's just like my emotional response to that is, ooh, like anxiety meter is rising.
Yeah.
We need to go and do something else to like distract ourselves from being increasing. Like when I say anxiety is rising, I'm becoming increasingly more aware of the anxiousness that exists within me.
Mm-hmm.
And my brain is like, okay, actually, let's like not be aware of that. Let's like go be aware of this YouTube video instead. So it was a very natural, like up until like a month ago. It's just a very like knee-jerk reaction. Yeah. And I would just feel this like restlessness. And I just feel like, oh, I gotta like message some people. Oh, I gotta like do something with myself. It's only recently that I like kind of explored the space between that feeling and how I was like my body was trying to immediately react and being like, actually, we can slow down and give this anxiousness some space,
Yeah.
and we can look at it, and it's okay to look at it. It's not gonna hurt you just to. I know it seems scary, but yeah, I don't know if this is a solution per se, but what I do is I just literally I'll sit on a like I don't know some chair, and I'll just like deep breath in, deep breath out, and then just like try to have a conversation with the part of me that's feeling this anxiousness.
Well, what does that conversation sound like?
I do the inner child thing
Hmm.
where I don't know if anyone has done any type of therapy work before. Actually, I think you introduced me to this concept like maybe 8-ish months ago.
Hmm.
This idea that you can kind of like conceptualize part of yourself as like a child version of you and try to have a conversation with that part of you that is, a child that's like, maybe 8 years old or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, I kind of just ask like, what's going on? What's going on for you,
Yeah.
little Kevin? And sometimes like nothing really comes back, and then that's cool too. I'm like, all right, let's just hang out for a little bit. Sometimes, and what that looks like is I'm just sitting there,
Yeah.
and kind of like eyes closed and just chilling with myself. Sometimes I fall asleep, but other times like little Kevin will say some things, and like most recently I had a moment like last week where the thought that came up was just like, man, things have been really hard lately. And then I got to like explore that thought a little bit and kind of give myself space to really feel that and acknowledge that, yeah, things have been really hard. And that I also like, was able to kind of affirm myself, and that like, I know that I've been putting up a good fight in a way, like been trying really hard, and like things aren't all that terrible. Like, sure, it's been really difficult, but there are some, I guess, early promising signs across like, across work, across how much like I'm working on myself and all these things. And I was like, just kind of had this inner talk with myself where I'm like, you're doing good though. And like, it's going to be okay. And that was kind of a pretty intense moment I had with myself. Actually, I was like crying, like actually
Whoa.
after I did that. So
Yeah. I mean, I had no idea. This sounds like you are starting to really embody a strong sense of self-compassion. And I mean, I'm surprised because this is never how you talk to yourself in the past.
yeah,
Like,
exactly.
This is the opposite of trial by fire and using like dark energy to motivate yourself. This is looking at that child and not being like, yo, stop being weak, get out there, and being like, hey, like, what do you need right now? Like, what's going on? And then earnestly listening and acknowledging that when that part of you is having a hard time, it's having a hard time.
Yeah. So that's what's on the other side of this anxiety wave. After it like rushes past me, I'm able to connect with myself essentially and have an internal dialogue.
Whoa.
So again, I don't know if this is helpful at all to what you were describing, because
No, this is helpful.
I think there was never really a magic moment for me when I just became aware of the biggest click point was becoming aware of the anxiety and then finding the space between that whole like action of feeling the anxiety come up and the immediate reaction of reach for distraction. I think once I was able to make that space and really kind of hit pause and just look at it. Yeah, because I had the same intrinsic underlying thought as you. I hate it when I am essentially noticing that I'm running away from a problem.
Yeah, exactly.
And it's like the only reason I'm not looking at this is because I'm afraid.
Yeah.
So yeah, I was definitely not going to run away. So I looked at it.
Whoa. Yeah, I mean, this is really encouraging me to try to do the same. Like, it's hard to work on this sometimes because the moments that come up are sporadic, but it's frequent enough that it's clearly a pattern in my life. And I think listening to you talk about the way you're engaging with it, and also the ways in which it sounds like you actually got to this point of self-compassion and catharsis, really is encouraging me to try more seriously engaging with this, but doing so in a kind manner. Like, I think that part of the frustration is when I'm in these moments of self-aware anxiety, so I'm not just anxious, I'm aware of the fact that I'm anxious, I do get really frustrated with myself. And I think in that moment, I'm not really listening. I'm just being upset. And yeah, and conceptually being like, I don't want to deal with you, little kid. Like, I'm going to put the TV on. Just don't talk to me.
Wow.
Which I think if I really frame it that way, is like really unkind. And yeah, it really is encouraging me to find a way to be kinder in those moments.
You know, it's coming up for me.
What?
Like, want to get in there and be like, "Don't you dare talk to my friend like that." You know, like, what?
It is weird that, like, I think that one of the really important roles to play to friends, but really to people that we have all manners of relationship to, is sometimes to like get in their way when they're not being good to themselves and being like, yo, like, please treat yourself better. It's just rare to see the moments where that would be the most important, especially when they're not in the most extreme forms of this. And it's just the kind of day-to-day negative self-talk. Um, but yeah, I think I am really earnestly going to try to recognize those moments as moments of challenge for like the less resource part of myself, and try to embody a kinder stance towards it. I think that breakdown of exactly how it played out for you is really helpful. When you went into that state for the day that where you ended up crying, like, how did you feel afterwards?
Catharsis.
Hmm.
Yeah, it was great. It's like a it's like a tension release.
Hmm.
Yeah, which like in the New Year's resolution we talked about wanting to do. One of my goals was to become better at like doing self emotional regulation,
Mm-hmm.
which essentially means like meeting your own emotional needs yourself. I think I was talking to my therapist about this, and he was like, "Yeah, what you're doing now is like steps towards that." And like he was kind of describing it as like it sounds like you have kind of reached this like new frontier in which like you're opening now this door of having a relationship with yourself that is like healthy, kind, encouraging, and positive. And like he's like, as you build that relationship, like that's how you get to a point of being like emotionally secure with yourself,
Mm.
because you realize that you can meet your own emotional needs intrinsically, which is kind of huge, right?
That sounds pretty huge.
Yeah. And I think it's really cool. I was reflecting on this whole process, right? Like, and it's really cool that like essentially my arc was like first taking RBTL and then like giving like space and recognition and labels and awareness to all these emotions and emotional needs that I and other humans have, and then leaned in very heavily into communicating about that, and then like learning to lean on other people to make space for me to create like that safe space that we talked about in the last episode, right? Of letting yourself like express, be heard, have your needs met. It's okay to advocate for your needs, all these other things, and that you can lean on other people to give you to give you that environment, to be heard, to have them affirm you and like give you support and encouragement. And there was a point where I had to learn to, okay, I can like take these things from other people, or I can ask for them and it'll be given, and then I can actually receive them and feel them. And then now it feels like the third level is that I learned to get that from other people. Now I can also get it from myself. Not that these things are mutually exclusive, but it's just kind of cool to like learn that. And then the macro observation is that like, it's weird that like the end state is this situation where you can be self-reliant and totally independent. But one of the ways that you get there is by having other people show you, like from interactions with other humans, that, you can have a connecting conversation with somebody else and then reach this point of catharsis. And you're like, wow, I'm really glad I got that off my chest. I like feel really heard, and like, wow, that feels amazing. I feel more energized, all that stuff. And then you realize that you can do that for yourself too.
Yeah. Like, I agree this follows a pretty similar arc as the things we were talking about in the last episode, where initially you kind of stumble into, or a friend brings you into an environment where you start to recognize possibilities. Eventually you learn how to ask other people for things that help you recreate those possibilities. But then eventually you learn how to recreate those environments for yourself. And it sounds like in the process of learning how to earnestly listen to and care for that inner child part of yourself, you found a way to create that space of catharsis for yourself.
Yeah. I'll add one caveat in there, or not a caveat, but one more important detail. I think there was 2 stages to that learning that you described. One was that these spaces, like other people can listen to me, and I can like receive this gift of like their attention and their care and how nice that feels. And then after that, I learned that I can give that to other people as well. I can make that space. I can like intentionally create safe spaces where I really listen and really care and communicate those things to them intentionally. And I've seen the impact that it's had on other people, right? And like people will reflect it like, wow, yeah, like never felt so connected before to somebody else, like, and just, that feels really good as someone that was able to do that. And then the last step is that you realize that like in the same way that you can do that for other people, you can also do that for yourself when you talk to like your inner child.
Yeah. I guess another way of framing this is you have to learn that these states exist. Then you learn how to receive them. Then you learn how to give them. Then you learn how to give and receive them at the same time.
Yeah. Give it to yourself.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Whoa.
Yeah. My push for you is like, in the same way that you're able to, do all these things for me, like what would it look like to do that for little Jamie?
Whoa. Yeah. The image of like, I don't want to deal with you. Let's watch TV is really sitting with me now.
It's pretty harsh, right?
It is hard.
Would you ever talk like that to one of your friends? Your friend's like, yo, I'm kind of like anxious right now. You're like, shut up. We're going to watch TV.
Yeah, right. I mean, that's just like, I don't want to deal with you. Let's just watch TV. And I mean, admittedly, if I was extremely exhausted, like over the top exhausted, I invite, but I think even then I would communicate it more kindly. Yeah. So this is going to be a bit of a tangent, but it is related. For quite a long time, I've had various mechanisms in place to intentionally increase the friction to going on to social media and various other kinds of like feed media, like these bottomless pits of media, which, I mean, the internet is ripe with them, but TV pre-internet was also this, just a thing you could turn on and shut your brain off entirely. And I've talked to so many people about these mechanisms and the ways in which they don't quite work. And there's lots of different ways in which these don't work. Like the most common one is just ones that are full on site blockers that usually have this problem. Eventually you realize that there's something you actually want to do, you turn it off, and then you have no motivation to turn it back on, so they just die. So then one of the first insights I had was I want to increase the friction, not make it impossible. So I made a thing for my laptop where on certain websites I'd have to click and hold for 10 seconds so that it at least would move past the muscle memory portion, and I'd have to have a stronger demand for it. And then on that page where I was sitting and waiting for the longest time, for like the last 4 or 5 years, I've had messages being like, I see you're trying to visit this website. Instead, here's some other things you might consider doing, like go talk to a friend, go read a book. But if I really reframe that in the form of this conversation, oftentimes the reason that I'm reaching for these things is not because I don't know what to do or I'm confused. It's because I have an emotional need. And it was only from a conversation with a past coworker where they really highlighted the fact that when you're approaching that environment, the alternative things you're considering doing are not the things on that list. It's not like, oh, you're right, I should go read a book. Like if I'm there, it's because there's something I'm avoiding. And the thing that needs to be addressed is not helping me select. In the same way that if a friend came to you being like, man, like I'm really stressed out, I can't focus right now, you wouldn't tell them, go read a book. You wouldn't tell them, like, go find a therapist right this second. You would help try to understand the emotional need. So recently, I just changed those things to, instead of it being suggestions, I changed them to questions and a prompt to breathe. So the only thing it says now is breathe. And there's a little animation that has a circle that expands and contracts. And then it's just 2 prompts that says, why are you here right now? What are you looking for? And what do you need right now? And to me, that's like actually a pretty important difference of engaging with it with honest curiosity about what's leading you there and just completely ignoring what state I'm actually in and then trying to redirect me to doing something that I already know why I'm not doing those things. So it's interesting how not only in the internal dialogue that happens, but also in the tools I was creating for myself for a long time, I didn't recognize that I was really trying to address an emotional need, not pragmatic one, and trying to solve that emotional need by redirecting energy to something that's more emotionally demanding is just a recipe for failure. And it's amazing because I don't think this is like a common insight, because all of these site blockers don't deal with these problems. They all just try to say, you're supposed to be focused right now, go back to work. But there's a reason I'm trying to do this thing right now, and it's because there's this unmet emotional need that hasn't been addressed.
Yeah, they all function at the symptomatic level.
Right.
They never really ask the root problem.
Right.
Granted, the root problem is a much harder thing to frame, right? You have to have quite a bit of self-awareness, I think, to be able to ask that question honestly and then actually try to engage with it. I think that takes a lot.
Yeah. Yeah. And admittedly, so what I have found since I added these prompts, which is only a couple days ago, is when I have an honest answer of like, why are you opening Instagram right now? Sometimes my answer is, someone sent me a message, I'm trying to look at the thing they sent me. And in that, when I answer that and I hit okay, I feel no internal conflict because I'm actually doing what I said I'm trying to do. But it's all the times when I notice myself avoidant, I'll see that prompt come up. And then right now my reaction is like, like I don't have a good answer, and then I'll close it. But I think what I probably should do is try to earnestly answer the question of like, why did you come here? And try to honestly write, like, I'm seeking distraction because I'm uncomfortable for the following reason, and then actually record that. And I wonder if I actually do that and I'm able to be honest about it and engage with it kindly, what patterns I'll see emerge and how I can sit with them like you have and have that as a more honest dialogue.
It's cool. It sounds like a really healthy intention. I think as you're saying that, I'm curious if you've gotten to this point yet, but that awareness that I was talking about the anxiety and the knee-jerk reaction before, I'm very good at labeling that when it comes up for me. Like I'll feel the reflexive, like, new tab, Facebook, and I'll be like, oh wait, why am I doing this? Okay, yeah, there it is. There's the like glimpse of anxiety, and then run away from the anxiety like that. Sometimes like I'm not like, great at this yet, to be honest, still work in progress. Like there's still moments where I wake up and scroll Instagram in the morning and I know exactly what's going on. But there are now also times where I see it come up and I'm going to put this away now. So it balances out. I think one thing I wanted to say from something you said like quite a while ago, actually, like when you were describing this, these situations when they come up, they tend to be inconsistent. Like they kind of just seem to happen.
Yeah.
I find that one super easy way to evoke it, for me at least, is just silence. If I sit on a chair or on a couch or whatever and just don't do anything, don't listen to anything, not on my phone, not on a device, sit there, within 10 or 15 seconds, boom, it happens. So I'm curious if that's that's always been, it's a forcing mechanism for me, that I know that when I seek stillness, essentially, the anxiety comes, and then now I just let it wash over me and then get to the other side. So I'm curious if it'll be a similar kind of thing for you.
It's interesting because I think that if I do it just in the middle of the day randomly without a specific intention, then it comes up like that. But if I say I'm going to meditate for the next half hour, I'm totally fine, which is really strange. Like I can relatively comfortably, assuming I don't have other time pressure things that are building up for me, or unless I'm already in a really anxious state, if I'm okay, I can sit for like half an hour without feeling like an intense urge to reach for anything. But I think it's because in those moments, I feel like I'm doing a thing. The activity is meditation.
Exactly.
Whereas it's really when I'm in the, what am I doing right now? I don't have a good answer to that question. Those are the times when I'm like, I need stimulation. I need distraction.
Exactly.
But I do, even in the course of trying to work on other things, I notice this come up all the time. So you're right. I think that I actually have, empirically, I have many triggers a day because I keep seeing this prompt coming up from this thing I set up on my phone for whenever I open Instagram, like this little prompt pops up. So you're right. I think there actually is enough. There is more than enough material for practice here.
Yeah. Yeah. Another way that I think about it also beyond seeking stillness is also just hanging out with inner little Kevin. And I I imagine in my mind, walking through a portal and then going to find little Kevin on the inside. It's actually pretty great. Like my mental image for this, our hangout spot is always the park.
Is it a specific park?
I don't know. I think it's fictional, but it's constructed from actual experiences. It's always a small, playground essentially that like it
Okay.
has like it's got a lot of sand, and there's a swing set with two seats, one for little Kevin and then one for me, and like
This is so cute.
yeah, and then like next to the swing set is like I don't know one of those like classic like you climb a 4-rung ladder and then there's a little slide that's
Yeah.
plastic,
Oh yeah.
and then that's all in like a little sand pit, but there's also like a grass area outside of the sand pit that angles up a little bit, so there's a little bit of a slant.
This is a very vivid picture.
Yeah, and then we have like two primary chill spots. We're either both on the swings and just kind of chilling,
Yeah.
or we're like on the green, on the grass, and either like sometimes like we'll be both like lying like down, like arms like like fingers crossed behind the head, kind of just looking in the sky, or sometimes if it's more serious, then like you'll like sit up and have your like like cross-legged or like sitting up on the grass together. So that's kind of the mental image that comes to my mind whenever I like try to have a conversation and ask like, oh, like, how are you doing today?
How old is little Kevin in this visualization?
8, roughly.
Wow.
Yeah.
It's a very specific and fast answer.
Yeah. It's roughly 8 years old.
Hmm.
Yeah, back when I was still cute.
You mean a different kind of cute.
Oh, wow. Thank you. Such flattery.
Whoa.
Yeah.
Was constructing that place an intentional act?
No.
How did it emerge in your head?
I was doing inner child work during therapy,
Hmm.
and it just one of the sessions just kind of came up and it kind of stuck, to be honest. Like the first time I did something like this, like it was like a guided thing. My therapist was having me like revisit some old childhood memories because we were talking through some trauma stuff. And then from there, like I kind of decided that, oh, this is kind of a tool that I can maybe use to like get in touch with my own thoughts and feelings.
Mhm.
And then ever since then, whenever I try to use this tool, like that's the environment. Oh, also, it's always perpetually autumn. It's
like Toronto autumn?
yeah, but like that 1 week transition between summer and fall when it's like it's nice and it's warm and it's like kind of sunny.
Nice.
Yeah. So that's our chill spot. That's how I hang out with myself.
Oh, getting nostalgia feels. Like I grew up right next to a park
Oh, no way.
that it didn't have exactly this, but it's not that far off. There was a swing set right in that park, and there
Yeah.
was a play structure right there. I would regularly just run around in the park after school. And
Yeah.
this was in Ottawa, so it had a similar kind of fall. So
Yeah.
it's evoking
Exactly.
these very specific memories of the feeling of leaves crunching under my feet. And it's a very warm,
Yeah, exactly. I mean,
simple feeling. Yeah.
yeah, there's several parks that I grew up around as well, like next to my elementary school. Like back when I was a kid, like going to play at the park was with like your friends after school was a big thing. There was like 2 or 3 parks that we would hit up, but yeah, it's definitely some combination of those that I think that's where it comes from.
Yeah.
I forget how we got into this mental image now, but I just wanted to share that because I think
No,
it's
I like it. I
pretty
mean-
pretty great.
I think this is another example of the beauty that comes from specificity.
Mm.
And that, you could have just mentioned, I have a happy place. It's where I talk to like little me, but instead it's like adult Kevin and 8-year-old Kevin lying in the grass with their fingers laced behind their head staring at the clouds, which is a very different
Yeah.
emotional landscape to engage with.
Yeah. Gets pretty intense sometimes, man. One time I had 2 big moments this week, and I mentioned the first one, and the second one, like as adult Kevin stepped through the portal, like little Kevin came running and was just like kind of in a very emotionally fraught state, kind of when a kid is like, I don't know, just needs that support. They run up to you and they just like hug you.
Yeah.
Like that also happened. It's like, wow, where is this stuff coming from? I have no idea. Like,
Yeah.
but yeah.
Whoa.
Yeah, some intense stuff, to be honest. I also like bawled my eyes out after
Yeah.
that session.
Yeah, man. The early therapy feelings of tapping into emotional wells you were unaware of is
Dude,
quite something.
yeah, it's intense. Yeah, it's great. I think I'm very excited for where this relationship with myself is going because it's giving a lot of credence to this hypothesis I've always had of like, I don't think I need that much. I just need a little bit of encouragement.
Yeah.
And like, I don't need people yelling at me. I think I'm very intrinsically motivated to like go after things and like be smart, be aggressive, like go after what I want. Like a lot of these like voices that are probably parental are always like, like focus up and get your life together and like at least like work harder, these kinds of things. Like realizing that I kind of like I have way enough of that energy, like intrinsically already, and I kind of need the other side, which is the emotional support side. And like having, leaning into that for myself recently has been really nice, especially because it is true. Things have been pretty hard.
Yeah. Dude,
Yeah.
it's so nice to watch you become kinder in the way that you speak to yourself.
Yeah, right. I feel like not that long ago, it was, and for most of my life, I think it's been pretty brutal out here.
Yeah.
So, yeah. And in hindsight, you're kind of just like, why did I ever yell at myself?
Yeah.
Like, yeah, it's almost like the world is already kind of like pushing against like you in a way, or it feels that way right now, I guess. It's like one really cool realization that I had is after like once this relationship got started, it's like you have like a partner for life in yourself,
Yeah.
which is kind of a beautiful realization. Like if you can get to that place where you have a nice, cordial relationship, supportive relationship with yourself, you're like, wow, like I just have someone, yourself, to rely on for like the rest of your life. And like this person's not going anywhere. Like, yeah, that's kind of the realization that made me cry a lot the second time.
Yeah. You realize you can be your own cheerleader, your own support, your own coach, your own mentor, and just like have your own back.
Dude, yeah, it's really
Yeah.
powerful. I think like, I mean, I don't know, this might be an interesting push for you or whoever else is listening. Like just like at some point try and do this exercise. Just like close your eyes, imagine you're talking to your child self and just like tell him or her or them that like, you know, I'm always going to be here for you and I kind of love you and you're great. Let's be friends.
Whoa. Oh man.
Yeah, it's pretty intense.
It's pretty intense.
I don't know what it's going to be like for people, but for me, that was like a huge moment because at least for me, that's kind of all like realized that that's always what I've wanted for myself, a sense of security, a sense of emotional support and encouragement, and like just knowing that someone was going to be there for me and that things were going to be okay at the end of the day. And then I realized that could just be me. That can, to a certain degree at least, that can come from myself.
Yeah.
So anyway, what's that? I'm forgetting now. Like, you know how in textbooks, sometimes they have like as an optional thing for the reader.
Left has an exercise for the
Left
has an exercise for the reader.
Yeah, exactly. That's what this is. Like,
this is
left as exercise for the listener.
Oh, this one leaves a much better taste in my mouth because the left has access to the reader. The way that I always read that in textbooks is like, we were too lazy to write this out in full. So we're going to pretend that we're doing this for your benefit, but really we ran out of budget.
That's so funny. Wow. I never thought about it like that.
But yeah. Because the worked examples that actually show the answers at the end and allow you to check to see if you did the right thing are way more helpful.
That's right.
But
yeah.
This one feels like more of an actual gift of an exercise rather than a, what's the word I'm looking for? It's not opt out rather than a cop out. Yeah.
Actually, this might be a great moment to mention if any of y'all listeners out there actually do that exercise and have any realizations. Did you know that we actually have 3 submission forms that are linked to every single episode description where you can ask us questions or give us feedback or give affirmations to other listeners of the podcast? We've had those for basically since the first episode, but we realized that we never mentioned it to anyone ever. So yeah, in case you have any realizations or maybe, I don't know, whatever your experience or learning is, like we'd love to hear from you and to share in that with you as well. So if you want, you can click into our episode description and fill out one of those Google forms. We'd love to hear from you.
Yeah, eventually that will be part of our outro, but for now, yes, that's a good direct call out. The other thing I wanted to call out, just because it is so on topic, one of the facilitators for the course that me and Kevin both took, Relating Between the Lines, this person named Jiggy Yoon, she has this dope series of t-shirts that say, it's like written as me versus me crossed out, and then below it says me with me. And it's kind of exactly this. It's kind of this idea that, there's all of this messaging you see all over the place about the only person you're competing against is yourself. And I think that comes from a good place in recognizing that comparison with other people is unhelpful. But I think it also can kind of create the same kind of internal conflict of rejecting past versions of yourself or beating yourself up for not pushing hard enough.
Mm-hmm.
So I really like the framing of me with me, which is kind of what you're talking about, of recognizing that you can be the person in your own corner. So I really like the messaging on it.
I love that.
I foolishly bought the shirt in too large size,
Oh no.
but I would highly recommend. The shirts are really cool.
That's awesome. Yes. I think, yeah, huge shout out to Jiggy. I think, was Jiggy both of our fellowship coaches?
No, but she was a facilitator for me during fellowship.
Okay, yeah. Jiggy was my coach as well as facilitator. So yeah.
Yeah.
Huge +1. And I think broadly heard this line of shirts, because she has a whole brand around it, right?
Yeah.
Vulnerability is dope,
Yeah.
as they say, as Jiggy says a lot, that, we very much agree. Yeah. I think we'll put a link in, I don't know, some description somewhere of this episode of where you can find this merch, because I'm 90% sure it's Vulnerability is Dope is the overall brand.
That's right.
But I'm forgetting the exact website right now.
We'll find it.
It'll be in the episode description below. We are once again not sponsored here, but what would be another sick sponsorship endorsement if anyone does want to sponsor us.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, man. How you feeling now?
Feeling pretty good. I think I'm emotionally back up to 6.
All right.
Look at that. Yeah. No expectations, but leading into it. Can't be mad at it. Yeah. How are you feeling?
I think I feel about this same in terms of energy level, like emotionally, like a 7 or an 8, and then physically around the same. But I think the emotional tone has changed from kind of calm to, oh man, how do I describe this? It's almost like a melancholy curiosity. Like I feel a little bit of sadness in recognizing the ways in which I have been speaking to myself, even about the reaching for a distraction. But I feel drawn to the possibilities of different ways of engaging with it now.
Love that. I have a feeling that little Jamie will forgive you.
Me too.
Yeah. Maybe I'll be good. That's cool. I think, yeah, for me, the exhaustion is gone, and now it's like mild tones of serenity, but like large amounts of self-appreciation.
Well,
yeah. This comes from the positive self-talk. I'm just kind of like, wow, look how far you've come, like in life, but also like this whole arc that spanned maybe like 8 months.
Yeah.
And then these last couple of realizations around this inner child work and stuff, like the last 3 weeks, huge clicks. And I'm like, wow, yeah, I think I'm pretty awesome. It's pretty cool, like watching that growth. And yeah, I'm feeling like, yeah, that's pretty dope.
Yeah, man. Looking forward to continuing to explore that growth over episodes to come.
Yeah, for sure. Got to stay humble, of course. My therapist always reminds me, he's like, I think you've started a new relationship, and it's the first step in this relationship. And I think it's going to be huge for getting to that place of security and like stillness, calmness, serenity. But I can like see the light at the end of the tunnel now.
Yeah.
And like, as with all relationships, it's going to take time to like build and, more to come. But it's cool to see the path forward now. And I can see the benefits of it. So I'm excited about, anything else you want to talk about or leave off on?
I think I'm good. And looking forward to trying the exercise and hearing about other people's experience doing the same.
Yeah, seriously, let us know. Either through the intake form, or you can maybe find us on Instagram.
Yeah.
If you're not already, follow us on Instagram at Vulnerability Junkies. And yeah, maybe, well, by the time this goes out, we'll probably have another post up for it. So you can maybe find us in the comments there as well. Let us know what you found when you had tried to do that inner dialogue with your inner child. Cool. Well, if nothing else, I guess we can call it there.
Thanks everyone for listening.
We'll see y'all in 2 weeks. If you enjoyed this conversation, Please help us by leaving a rating on your favorite podcast app. We would really appreciate it because it helps us grow and lets others find the show.
When we're not podcasting, Kevin also makes YouTube videos.
And Jamie has a blog. You can find links to these in the episode description.
The intro music you heard in this episode was made by Harry Dye.
Thanks for listening. We'll see you in 2 weeks.